Thank you, everybody, for joining Coffee Conversations. It's been a minute. I took a little hiatus. I'm back. Need to take some self-care time, and I'm super excited. So we're just kicking off the next iteration of Trace Coffee Conversations, and I'm very excited for my guest, Liesel Mertes. Thank you for joining me.
Hi, everybody, and it's so good to join you.
So you and everyone's going to hear this as we go. And everyone that's listening or watching, her voice is like butter. So just follow along, whether you just listen to the cadence, whatever. Anyway, big fan. You're all going to find out. It's really great. So Liesel is a workplace empathy consultant. You are the founder of Handle with Care. One thing, and you've done other things, right? You've been a teacher. I wrote some things down. Pastoral resident, a holistic lifestyle coach, like all these amazing things. But there's something I really wanted to pull on before we dive into our questions. And that was that you said that empathy is the leadership skill of 2022. And I really want to hit on that because obviously we're still in a pandemic, even though we like to pretend that we're not. Some people and all of us, whether we have great or small, have gone through a lot of trauma. So I really want to talk about that. But first, can you tell us, what do you do in your words?
I love working with teams and organizations and individuals to help skill them up in empathy and connection. And that phrasing is really purposeful, to skill up in it, because, for many people, if they're unfamiliar with the term, we tend to conceptualize of empathy as like a personality bound sort of a thing.
Like a soft skill.
Yeah. And I like the term human skill instead of soft skill.
Noted.
But yeah, that some people come to it naturally and intuitively. And it's true. Some people have a lot more of a natural capacity and inclination to it, but everybody can grow in it. And like any other skill set we develop in business, because it's essential to our bottom line and to our people, and empathy is to both, we can grow in that. So I love helping organizations do that through a range of different offerings. It's something that is close to my own life story. And, even as we talk about, whether it's framed as like the skill of 2022, I think that the pandemic, I know in the people leaders I've talked to, this question of, are we giving our people what they need to survive, stabilize, and return to a point of thriving, whether that's like life located or pandemic located, is so top of mind.
Oh, that's so good. So how did you get to this point? Because you've done, right, teaching, pastoral resident, coach. How did you get here? And I know that the story is important and tragic and beautiful. So can you tell us, how'd you get here?
Yes. So, I could start telling you from when I was like 6 years old. And it's funny that you mentioned this. We will get to the answer, but even
Yes.
my voice, like you're the second person recently. I remember when I was competing in like mock trial and speech competitions in high school, I would hear recordings of myself, and especially when I get like really animated, my register goes a little bit higher, and I remember thinking, if I just had a deeper voice, people would take me so much more seriously. I wish I could drop it. So I think it serves me now, but it wasn't something that I loved about myself. Well, as to the start of my professional journey post, high school speech competitions, a big hinge point was being in an MBA program. In 2010, I had 2 small children. I had said yes to a great scholarship from IU, and found out a week later that I was unexpectedly pregnant with our 3rd child. And I was like, that's okay. I think I can multitask. I've got a good partner. We can totally do it. But our little daughter, Mercy Joan, we found out at about her 20-week scan that she had a pretty profound birth defect called an encephalocele. And there's this wide range of outcomes. Sometimes it's like mild impairment. Sometimes it's terminal. So in the midst of going to finance class and accounting, we were driving up to Indianapolis and meeting with all these high-risk specialists. And it was something where we didn't really know what the outcome would be until she was delivered. So gave birth to her in 2011, and we buried her 8 days later. There are so many reverberations of that into just my general life story as it specifically relates to a career trajectory, it was a moment to realize I'm like a very competent, high achieving person, and I am not okay. Like I'm not all the things right now.
Yeah.
I actually really need support, and some people were really well equipped to give it. Other people, they just had no idea at how poor they were in the skill set. I was like, oh my gosh, that was just, I see you're trying, but that was so hopeless. That didn't help at all. And it had me thinking about just how we train managers and how we operate in the workplace. This was a
Yeah.
very expensive program for 2 years. And I was like, we didn't spend 5 minutes of a single class period talking about how to do this better. So that launched a spirit of inquiry and some other life events with the heart operations of my son. But about 4.5, 5 years ago, I just started having roundtables with people who had gone through disruptive life events and meeting with HR directors and managers and being like, how do you address these things? And they were like, I don't know. We're just hoping for the best. And I thought, I think there's an opportunity there.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Just diving into that alone and meeting with people and now taking not only pre-pandemic conversations that are deep and hard and working with struggle and trauma, and then layering on an entire pandemic where people are shut down and children and families and things are disruptive and things have bubbled to the surface, right? That kind of when we were go, 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 kind of push down. So where have you found some of that struggle? It's been it is a rough time still, but a rough couple years. And then let's bookend it. Where are you finding that delight, that silver lining?
In my personal life or in people
Either.
I serve? Like, okay, well,
We're here to talk about you and to share about you. I want people to know
oh
you.
man. Well, I mean, the personal struggles are like everyone else. We in America in the 21st century, we get to operate under the illusion that we actually control quite a bit. You know, I can order my groceries on my phone. We have this buffer zone of affluence and ease that people throughout human history have not had. And that's a great way to be able to live. It's not like we romanticize, you know, when life was nasty, brutish, and short throughout most of human existence. But to run into the pandemic, I think, is to profoundly run into all the things that you're out of control. And there's not a timeline of when you're suddenly going to feel again that illusion of control. So I think like everyone else, I was just dealing with that. That's like an existential question, but the existential stress comes out in just a lack of capacity for all of the dailiness of like the Clorox wipes. And I asked my husband even early on in the pandemic, I was like, so wait, we had 4 children that had to do at-home schooling. I think we only had 2 computers and we were all still like, how did we even do that first? I don't even remember. I think I've just suppressed it.
Yes.
Like I don't even know how we got through that. So and I'm someone who actually has a lot of things going for me. Like financially, I don't live on the edge. I live with a partner who's actually pretty helpful, and I still really like him most of the time. I have family supports, and still there were just like these days where you go, oh my gosh. I mean, this is just an extension question as I'm riffing off of that. I think our bodies tell us about our stress too, and maybe people resonate with it throughout the pandemic. For example, you might not be able to see it in the video, but this eye, I got a cold sore on it when I was like 2 years old. Yeah, it's a herpes one. That's cold sore thing. Got it on the surface. It is one of the most painful memories of my childhood because they had to I was red and inflamed. They had to put these drops on my eye. I don't remember much from 2, but I remember that. Apparently, this just sits in your system. Like related to just waiting for the moment when it's going to experience again. Yeah. So even this last year, February, so this is pandemic related, but also like grief related. So I'm in the midst of the week of Mercy's birth and death, which every year I can anticipate. I don't know how it's going to look, but it's always going to be a thing. Maybe not always. It has always been a thing.
Yeah.
That my body encounters in all kinds of ways. And I'm actually feeling like okay about it. I'm trying to do all the things I'm doing. Even I go to like work out and I'm like, I'm only going to do stability exercises today. I'm not going to try to kill myself. So, of course, I like tweak my back. And then I have this flare up. I think I have pink eye, but it becomes like a 6-week thing with this horrible, and I can't even, I'm doing all these speaking engagements with like Stevie Wonder classes. It's terrible. So it felt super bad, and the optometrist was like, "Okay, now it's activated. So when you have times of stress, it's gonna activate again." And again, back to school. I feel like I'm okay. I know it's been a little bit sleepless. I know I'm having to help people with geometry, but the body keeps the score. The
Yeah.
little eyeball acted up again. At least I caught it earlier. But it's those things of like, even sometimes we think we're doing okay. We think
Yeah.
we're just pushing it, and your body will be like, I think there's some things you need to pay attention to. So
So
those
where
are
you
little things
find
going on.
so where you find some of the joy, right? Where's some of that joy professionally,
Mhm.
right? Coming out of the pandemic, what's going right?
I love the work that I get to do. I
Yeah.
find great like meaning in it. I love the aha moments of people that are like, "Oh, that's why I'm not connected." I had somebody within the last stretch of time just write me an email afterwards, and she was like, "This was so inside. I realized I have a daughter who's on an addiction journey, and just what you shared was the impetus for me to call her up this weekend, and we had this like 3-hour conversation.
Oh,
We were finally able to give, and that's tremendous work that they're both doing in their relationship. But to be like, I
yeah.
can be a part of like an impulse into that story, or even just yeah, seeing aha moments. I, as much as parenting 4 children is the biggest drain of my energy, it's also a place of like deep joy and fulfillment. They are aggressively participatory, engaged kids who just love living life to the fullest and wear their emotions big. And when that's not draining me, I love it. I think I'm going to love the adults that they are. So I love seeing where they are. We just moved across the street from my parents, where they've been for 25 years and I grew
Yeah.
up. There's a sweetness to that. My kids get to cross the street and like pick up chicken eggs and do things like that.
I
Um,
love it.
and I really enjoy being outdoors. I try to make space for that as much
Yeah.
as it's tremendously grounding to me. And shout out to Luke, who's my husband. We have done the work and continue to do the work in marriage. I
Yeah.
love him more now than I thought was possible, especially in those early married years where we were just knocking heads
Yeah.
all the time. So I'm glad to still be married to him.
Those are beautiful silver linings.
Yeah, and we have
What
a great community. We have just moved into
yes.
a really great community. So I feel like I have friends, I have people along the way. Grateful for all those things.
I love that. So tell us, and especially you being incredibly grounded in life anyway, right? Strong support,
I'm
family.
trying. I am
I love it.
trying.
But, how are you? And obviously that lends itself to you being able to do this work,
Mm.
right? Is being grounded in your own, tethered in your own. And so, what does it look like? So, for people that are watching or listening and saying, yeah, but what does an empathy consultant do? What do they do when they come and talk? Like, share a little bit about what kind of that work is. And I know that's hard to say in a nutshell, but what is that
Mhm.
work?
There are a couple of main themes that I talk about. So I'll
Yeah.
reference a few of them, then I'll talk about just the bread and butter, like conceptual stuff. So I talk about how to cultivate resilience in your team, how to use empathy as a segue into hard conversations, which is adjacent to diversity, equity, and inclusion work. I help people have better performance review conversations and things like that. But a foundational piece where we start is I usually title it like how to create a culture of care. And the main aspect we talk about why it matters for your bottom line. What are some of your objectives? And not objectives, although the objections.
Yes.
Like, hey, I'm just exhausted right now. Let's
Yeah.
talk about compassion and change fatigue, or I'm just not empathetic. And what I want to introduce people to conceptually is the tools in their empathy toolkit. We all have things that we reach for based on our, culture of origin, our foundational experiences with sadness when people told us like, hey, big boys don't cry, or tomorrow's another day. And because we're a grief adverse culture, we
Yep.
only reach for those things when we don't examine them. We just keep using the same things. And so looking what's in there, does it serve us? This is in the service of becoming, taking that toolkit image, like a workplace first responder, almost like a paramedic.
Mhm.
You're not someone's counselor. You shouldn't be in a workplace setting. You don't have to be their small group leader or their rabbi or all the things you could be. You need a basic set of skills that can be helpful and maybe stabilize them to the next level of care,
Yeah.
just like a first responder.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's some of the setup. One of the ways that I do that so it's sticky and memorable is I introduce people to a handful of empathy avatars.
Okay.
This is also helpful because instead of Jillian talking about like, oh my gosh, whenever you try to comfort somebody, you do this thing.
Yeah.
We would instead say, Jillian, it seemed in that interaction that you were inhabiting a fix it frank, posture. So
Yeah.
that would be someone who, instead of identify, is just jumping to fix things. Okay, what are particular tips for fix it Frank? So whether it's buck up Bobby, fix it Frank, cheer up Cheryl, commiserating Candace, interrogating Edward, joking Julie. These are just a handful of
Yeah.
them. And we have specific tips for each type, helping to skill up and silence Sam. None of these postures are inherently bad, but they can steer you away from your goal of actually connecting, helping the other person. Or if that's not your goal, we want to talk about why it actually could help you in the bottom line of your business to incorporate that as one of your goals.
So good. In my head, I'm going through one, yes, management, obviously, but even, you know, customer facing roles like me and objection and all of that. It's just so fascinating. There's so many important buckets that this kind of work could fill. And again, I love that you called it a human skill and not a soft skill. I'm a big advocate when we say, oh, it's a soft skill. I'm like, well, it took 40 plus years to get that skill.
Yeah.
And those, some of those things, those are life things that I think are incredibly valuable. So I thank you so much for explaining that. I think that's going to resonate with a lot of people on what that is. And so with people learning more about you, with the community as a whole, what can they do to show up? What does that mean to you?
Just communities of people in general when they show up for people.
Whatever it means to you. Some
Yep.
people literally go, please go vote. And that's their
Oh,
thing. And some people literally
that's
say,
how they show
buy
up.
my stuff.
Oh,
Right.
okay.
So
Yes, yes, yes. I
whatever
was
that
thinking more
means.
broadly, how we show up for each other. Well,
Yeah. Or for
as
you, what do
we
you
show
need?
up within the community of humanity,
Yes.
realize that even if this is the only touch that you ever have with considering empathy in life, and specifically in the workplace,
Mhm.
to be able to give some more attention to, what do I do is a good question to ask, and realizing it's just a journey. To be present is more important than to be perfect. Even if you don't know anything else to say, when somebody tells you something hard, just to say something like, that sounds like a lot. If you don't know what to say, I don't even know what to say right now,
Mhm.
but I want to let you know. I appreciate just that, even that verbal act of acknowledgement. Great place to start. So that's just showing up for people in general. If you do want to learn more about me or what I do, my website is really easy. It's lieselmertes.com. If you're thinking about a workplace manifestation, you can schedule a free consultation there. There's all kinds of ways that I love to work with people, but just everybody in their small spheres, even if it's just the acknowledgement that, man, aren't we all craving a little bit more of a sense of not being alone, and believing that the hard crap that we're going through does not inherently distance us from people. There's a deep fear of being absolutely isolated and alone. And when you can move towards someone instead of moving away, because talking about pain is hard and it's scary and all the things, but just the movement towards them is profoundly impactful in all of our spheres of influence.
Oh, I'm just going to play that again and again and again.
Yeah.
Again, that was so beautiful.
Okay.
So we're coming towards an end. So
Yeah.
always the big question, Liesel, how are you leaving your trace?
One might hope to say I love the work that I get to do, but I think a constant pitfall that we
Mhm.
can see in people of positions of influence, which throughout most of human history have been men, but just people of influence, is that work can be so consuming that that is the majority impact that they leave.
Yeah.
I actually know in a deep part of myself that the most profound impact that I leave is not going to be through the work that I do, although I hope it contributes to it. I hope that the work that I do informs the person who I am. A
Yeah.
daily meditation, prayer, posture that I have is give me eyes to see what is most important today. And if I can't show up in integrity as the person I want to be, someone who is not perfect, but who is promoting connection, who is being present, who is not just so consumed with a task that I miss the person. I want to be a neighbor to my neighbors. I want to be a sister to my sister, a daughter to my parents, a member of my community in a way that moves us towards more life giving, things. And that is actually for anyone in middle adulthood, that is a lifelong task
Yeah.
because it's just easy to be scattered. And I'm not perfect at that, but that's who I hope to be, someone who, um, yeah, whose impact is felt in a dozen small ways. And if it's in the big ways of vocational impact, that's just an overflow of integrity to the work that I'm trying to do.
I love that. I had to take a moment to just not speak for a moment as I kind of absorbed some of those words. Lisa, I'm so grateful for you. And I'm so grateful for the work that you do. I'm grateful for the time that you gave me today, even with my scheduling snafu. So I just adore you. And I, again, could listen to you forever because I just love the sound of your voice. But thank you for sharing your journey and your skills and your gifts to this community. So thank you so much for joining me.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.